welcome back to another episode of Two Scrippers, One Motherfucking Pole. Whew. I always say this. I always have a lot, but I really do. And it's like, even in the past day or so, it's been crazy. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Mango, aka Temptress Mango, the real Mistress Goddess Princess. I am a pro dominatrix, kink educator, artist, so many things. I'm so many things. I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Quite literally. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I have a lot. If I had to kind of go over the topics, I would say ancestral healing, humanity and purpose, happiness, pleasure, unlikely partnerships, romanticizing your life. Like, these are just some of my notes. Since I last recorded, a lot has happened, and I have been doing my absolute best to remain present in it all, because I love seeing, like, when I come to these podcasts, when I come to do these episodes, I try to get a general idea of what I want to talk about. And sometimes I'll jot it down and I forget why I jot it down. And then I'll be in the process of processing it on camera. And then I get in my head like, oh my God, whatever, this, that, and third. Like, oh, did you really say that? Or that doesn't make sense. Like, all the self-consciousness, right? But then I have to remember that that is how it is, how that message is coming through me, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense in that moment, how it will later on. So anyway, before I get too deep, y'all, let me tell you about this foot party I went to. I got two funny stories. So I've mentioned before how I love asking the people that come, like, when did you first realize that you had a foot fetish? So this one guy, bless his little heart, he was so fucking shy. I mean, he was so shy. He was literally like hiding behind his sweater. But we were chit-chatting for a very, very long time. And when I asked him, he said that he has a foot fetish, but he also likes human furniture. And I love a good human doormat. So he told me a lot of things. He was like, he's been a mattress before, which I thought was like, whoa, I never even, I've seen somebody pretend to be a couch. And that was literally just like them. Shout out Hood Day and Alpha Selena. But it was like Hoodman was the bottom. I think Alpha Selena had wrapped them in saran wrap, so mummification, and had Hood them lay on the couch. And then Alpha Selena laid on top and was like reading her magazine. I think that picture is so dope. I love that picture. I'm like, I'm waiting for the moment that I can recreate that. So I've seen that. But this person was like, they actually let somebody, like, they pretended to be the mattress and let a couple fuck on top of them. I was like, oh, that's crazy. Then you have the classic footstool, which even that, it's like, when I think of footstool, or at least the first human furniture person that I met, when they said they are footstool, their position is usually like tabletop, like this. So that's what I think of a footstool. But then I've met a lot of people who they'll say, oh yeah, I love being a footstool, and then they'll lay flat. And I'm like, that's not a footstool. Like, that's a doormat, or a floor mat or carpet or whatever. So I don't know. Or some people would say that tabletop's a chair. So it's interesting to see people's different perceptions. But anyway, so yeah. And the first person that I met, because this would only be the second person that I've met that has like expressed like, no, human furniture is definitely a thing for me. And the first person that I met, they had told me that their favorite part of being human furniture is this idea of restraint, because furniture is an inanimate object. So that is them playing with the idea of bondage without necessarily being tied up with wrist cuffs or handcuffs or rope or whatever else. So I thought that was interesting, this idea of human furniture as bondage. But this person was also talking to me about how in that same instance, it is, you are now being objectified and you're inanimate object, so you don't have thoughts. It's that idea of just being present in the moment and present with the moment. And like I can shut down and not have to worry about anything, because as a couch or a mattress, like I'm just here, I'm experiencing this moment. And I thought that that was like really, really beautiful. And I started reading, ironically, and it wasn't even, I don't know if I started reading this before or if I just decided to reread it, but if you've been here for a while, you know The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Like, shout out to my wife, Jessie Reyes. I love you, bitch. I ain't never gonna stop loving you, bitch. She's the one that, she had read this book, and when I was watching one of her interviews, like that was the first time that I had ever read this book. And so if you're watching, you see I have all my little, like, this book is highlighted down, like, well, of course when I show it, but it's highlighted, okay? Like, this is my book. I fucking love this book. So I read this for the first time back in 2022 or 2023. Life changing. I've talked about this book several times over the years. I'll never not talk about it. But I only read it that one time. And I've been telling myself, like, oh, I'm gonna go back and read it. I'm gonna go back and read it. And I just never had. And I felt like now was the time to do it, right? And I've talked about in the past couple of episodes since I've been back, I've talked about it before, of like meditation and how hard it is to do, and kind of how to think about it. And so, and now that I'm on this journey of like conscious creation and all that stuff, right? Is just, it definitely hits different to read it damn near 3-4 years after everything that has happened, all the different experiences, and even just some of the new resources and people and ideologies and things that I've come across now. So there's a couple things. I'm going to come back to this book too, because I love reading too. Y'all, I got another book that I was like originally, so when I originally was coming up, that's kind of how I got here. So when I was originally coming up with what am I going to talk about in this next episode, I was reading The Circle of Fire by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I think I'm rereading this too. I can't remember if I actually finished the book or if I like made it halfway, but it's such a short book that I was like, let me just go back to the beginning. So I can't remember if I read it through all the way or not. But I was reading this and it was talking about like love and forgiveness and humanity. Like the chapters are literally, I'll read the chapters out loud. Is introduction, truth, forgiveness, love, gratitude, humanity, inner silence, the wedding day, the circle of fire. And then there's like different prayers in there too. So like prayer for truth, prayer for forgiveness, prayer for love, prayer for the physical body, prayer for gratitude, prayer for humanity, prayer for divinity, the circle of fire. And then I believe it's El Círculo de Fuego, which is the same thing, is a circle of fire, but translated in Spanish. Yes, it's the prayer translated in Spanish. So I was gonna start with reading some of this, right? But I honestly, for like, this book is good, and there was so much that I was like, I really could just read this whole book. And I know in like last season, I think it was season 2, I did it. I don't know if it was season, I think it was season 2, yeah, because I was doing episodes by myself then. And I was reading inserts from The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, however you say that man's name, okay? Charge it to my head, not my heart, okay? Anyway, but I was reading chapters from that book, and that's where I was going to start out, right? It was like, oh, this is really good, let me read this. But then I was like, I could really just read this whole fucking book, right? So maybe, I don't know. So it started there. And then as the week progressed, so many things have happened that there's literally like, I have these pages, I have this page, like I have notes in here, I have different pictures. So yeah, I'll go back to this because when he was talking about you know, that idea of stillness, here are a couple things that I have highlighted. I think that's just easier for me to start there. The word enlightenment conjures up the idea of some superhuman accomplishment, and the ego likes to keep it that way. but it is simply your natural state of felt oneness with being. You can know it only when the mind is still. When you are present, when your attention is fully and intensely in the now, being can be felt, but it can never be understood mentally. It is your very essence, and it is immediately accessible to you as the feeling of your own presence, the realization I am that is prior to I am this or I am that. So it is only a small step from the word being to the experience of being. Identification with your mind creates an opaque screen of concepts, labels, images, words, judgments, and definitions that block all true relationship. It is the screen of thought that creates the illusion of separateness, the illusion that there is you and a totally separate other. Then it goes on to talk about like how the mind is really a beautiful instrument. And then it says, continuing the quote, you usually don't use it correctly though. It uses you. This is the disease. You believe that you are your mind. This is the delusion. The instrument has taken you over. But the moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. You'll soon realize there is the voice, and here I am listening to it, watching it. This I am realization, this sense of your own presence is not a thought. As you listen to the thought, you feel a conscious presence, your deeper self, behind or underneath the thought, as it were. The thought then loses its power over you and quickly subsides because you are no longer energizing the mind through identification with it. And you can call this like a gap of no mind. And again, I'm just reading like the highlighted portions of this. So if it kind of sounds like I'm jumping, it's because I literally am. Thought cannot exist without consciousness, but consciousness does not need thought. And I think I'll stop right there because there were some other things that I was like, oh my God. I'll read. Okay, there's only a few more highlighted sections. Let's see. An emotion usually represents an amplified and energized thought pattern. And because of its often overpowering energetic charge, it is not easy initially to stay present enough to be able to watch it. Often a vicious circle builds up between your thinking and the emotion. They feed each other. By dwelling mentally on the situation, event, or person that is the perceived cause of the emotion, the thought feeds energy to the emotion, which in turn energizes the thought pattern, and so on. Even when the sky is heavily overcast, the sun hasn't disappeared. It's still there on the other side of the clouds. So don't seek to become free of desire or to achieve enlightenment. Become present. Be there as the observer of the mind. The greater part of human pain is unnecessary. It is self-created as long as the unobserved mind runs your life. Why does the mind habitually deny or resist the now? Because it cannot function and remain in control without time, which is the past and future. So it perceives the timeless now as threatening. Time and mind are in fact inseparable. So how do you stop creating time? You realize deeply that the present moment is all you'll ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. That's so profound. Oh my God. So even just with that, that's what I had highlighted so far. And then it brought up memories and it came up in different conversations. But I've talked about this before of like, it's so easy to get stuck in a thought loop, because then you start thinking something and then you get that emotion, like they were saying, that like this vicious cycle. You have the emotion, you have these thoughts, they charge your emotions, and then because of your emotions, like it's just like a cycle, and then you go down this rabbit hole, and now you're stressed out, right? And whenever you're thinking of something in the past, or you're thinking of something that has already happened, or you're thinking of something that potentially could happen, because we never know what's coming next, right? So usually our thoughts for the future are tied to worry or anxiety, when our thoughts from the past are grief and loss and maybe even anger. And when we're in the present moment, you can appreciate everything for what it is. And if you have these thoughts of what happened in the past, you can be appreciative of what it's taught you or how it turned out. Maybe there was a point in time where you were really, really worried about this specific situation, and you didn't know how it was going to play out, and then it did end up working out in your favor. And so you can think of that thought from a space of gratitude and reframing things. I've talked about my crazy ass ex. As crazy as that motherfucker was, I mean, he put me through that. Or is it put you through? I don't know. Whatever the song is. But I was people in that video. Anyway, whatever the song is, but he really put me through it, right? Like that was one of those relationships that was a heartbreak, and it was rough. Like I was down bad for a couple of minutes, or minutes, whatever. Y'all know what the hell I'm trying to say. But that was like my first sexually freeing relationship. Now I've always been very very sexually positive, and I'll kind of talk about how some of, like, now I had these realizations, but that was like my first, like, I remember in that relationship, that's where I really started exploring lingerie, and not even necessarily for him, because it was a very toxic relationship, but there were moments, like there was that relationship. I was at my highest weight. I was very unhealthy. Like I was very stressed out. It was not an overall good relationship. But so I remember one of my first pieces of lingerie, it was like a bodysuit, and it covered my stomach, which I was insecure about, and it covered, like, it was long sleeve. But just the idea of putting that on was just so like, what? That was a big deal for me. And then when I was with him, I had bought some of my first sex toys, because I remember, like, in college, my friends would say stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't care for sex toys, because, I'd rather just actually have the thing. Like, I need to be in the moment. Like, a toy can't bite me. A toy can't do this and whatever else. And it wasn't like I bought those toys to explore them with him, but I ended up buying those toys, and it was like I was able to present them to him. Like, he was the first man that ate my ass. Like, SB tucking the butt all wild. Like, so, and it was like, I remember I bought my first flogger with him, and I think I, like, let him use it on me. So it was like, for that relationship, he was the first nigga to spit in my mouth. Like, so that was, for me, I can be grateful for those experiences, right? With another relationship, it's like, I knew I probably shouldn't have got into it in the first place. And there was a lot of parts of myself that I compromised, because I was at a space where I thought that, I thought that was the best I was ever going to get. And then when that relationship went to fucking shambles, that in itself was a lesson for me to, like, to trust myself and know what I need. Because I was saying, like, everything that I said I didn't want to do, I ended up doing anyway, for the sake of someone else's pleasure and not mine. And, like, even now, it's like, I listen, I think spitting on somebody is, like, one of the most disrespectful things you could do. I refuse to go to jail over a nigga. Okay. So there's just, like, certain things, and I try not to get worked up when I start talking about these past experiences. Right. But even in that, it's like, I have enough awareness of, like, I can tell the story of an experience without reattaching myself to that emotion and then going down this cycle of like, that nigga really had me fucked up and da-da-da-da-da, and I ain't never gonna let a nigga play me like that again. No, like, I have better discernment. The minute somebody even says something sideways to me, it's like, I'm better than this. Like, I literally have better things to do than to put up with all of this. So yeah, that. And thoughts cannot exist without consciousness, but consciousness does not need thought. Like, consciousness and God, source, universe, whatever you call them. I have some other things that I want to talk about too, in terms of scripture and God and that. But the trees don't think, but they are living beings. Grass doesn't think, or do they? I don't know. I'm not a blade of grass. I'm not a squirrel. Like, I'm not well, technically I am water, right? But it's like all these reflections of ourselves in nature. And oh my God, it's just so many things. So many beautiful things. So anywho, back to the guy who was just talking about being present in the moment. Like, even then he was saying that he had, like, before he came, he just happened, he was looking for things. It was his first time outside, and he was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go. But literally right before he was coming, like, some shit happened, and he was really stressed out. He was like, I'm not even gonna go. But then he was like, you know what, I'll go and I'll just talk to people. I might not even session. And then we were having a conversation, and he said that I made him feel comfortable enough to have the conversation, to, like, actually have a session, right? And it was like, even when we were in that moment, it was like, it was just me and him with my feet in his face. And it was funny. He was like, oh my God, like, you're the way you just, like, switch is just crazy, because when we were sitting at the bar and talking, you're just, like, bubbly and da-da-da. And he's like, once we went in the session, he was like, I couldn't even look at you in your eyes because your eyes were just so seductive and you had this look and da-da-da. And it was funny to hear him say that, because there was a point where he looked at me and I could tell, like, he immediately, like, looked away, and I was like, he's so shy. And it was funny to hear him say that. But there was, like, a point where I could notice in his breathing that he was a little bit anxious, and I was just like, be here right now. It's just me and you. Like, tune out the music, tune out the other people doing what they're doing. It's just me and you in this moment. And I think that's beautiful too, of, like, BDSM, you know, and kink. And kink and BDSM do not have to involve sex. And I've talked about this before, where it's like, you know, I identify as a sex worker because it is sex work. And that's the problem right now, that too many people are, like, getting into different facets of this world. And if femdom is sex work, femdom falls under femdom. Financial domination falls under female domination. And it is a form of power exchange. It is a form of power dynamic, right? Because we put so much weight on money in this world. Money is energy. That's what it really is. But I'm not going to go. I've talked about money energy. Check out episode 62, because I think last week's was 63. I was outside again. Whatever episode that niggas like noses too. That episode, I was talking about money energetics, and I talked about it, I think, last week and a week. Anyway, I've been talking about money energetics this season. But yes, money is energy. When we really get down to the nitty gritty of it, everything is energy, and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transmuted. But to my point, in the 3D world, we put so much weight and power in money, and men inherently make more money. Okay, I had a awkward pause because there's some kids in the background, but I was trying to wait for them to leave, but it seems like they want to be in my video, so they keep, like, coming through the screen and waving, and I'm not that pressed to, like, try to move. But anyway, so yes, back to femdom being a form of, like, it's power exchange, and it can be, dependent on what's negotiated, it can be a form of total power exchange. Now, you have some people in financial domination that just want to send you money, send you tributes, and not necessarily have you take over their complete finances. They just want to give that money, sacrifice that money as an offering to you. Then you have people who are like, no, these are my finances. Like, I want you to steward my money. I want you to tell me how my money should be spent, right? And it's like, give me a budget, and it could be for whatever reason. Maybe they don't want to have to worry about where their money is going, or, have to take care of the bills or whatever. Everybody has their different reasons, right? So what was my initial point? I was talking about power dynamics and financial domination, but before I was there, I was talking about the guy at the party. We always find our way back, right? BDSM. So yes, and I've talked about how, when a bitch thought that she had herpes, I was real stressed out. I was stressed out real bad, and that was at the same time that I started my dom journey in April 23. In June or July, I think it was July, is when I started actually going out it was June. I actually started going out to community events, and I think I started grad school either that same June or I started in July. But a lot of what we were learning was values, consent, and boundaries. Like, as a therapist, you have to that you're going to be talking about a lot of traumatic things, right? And you have to, you're sharing your secondary trauma with people, and you have to put up boundaries of like, I'm here for you, I'm listening to you, but these are my office hours. These are the times, like, if it's an emergency, then here's who you can reach out to, and giving them, resources that are actually going to be applicable to them or helpful to them that they can reach out to. But like, you have to, even setting that boundary of, even within the dom space, it's like, if I have a sub that comes to me and he's dealing with something heavy, or they're dealing with something heavy, I have to leave that in session, right? And again, depending on how deep our dynamic is, like, is it a lifestyle dynamic, or is it just professional? Like, you pay me for whatever a lot of time, and then we go about our business. Or is it something that is more lifestyle, and we are spending a lot more time together, and I do need to know, like, what's going on with your life. So, yes. Again, how did I get there? It's really throwing me off that these kids are back there. Ooh, the sun feels so good on my skin. Did you go outside today? Did you touch grass? Did you take a deep breath? Let's take a breath break while I regather my thoughts. So yeah, when I thought that I had the herpes, it was like I was really stressed out. But that's when I went to the event and we were playing with rope. And I've talked about how, like, shout out Play, he tied my legs and then he tied my arms. And he tied my arms behind my head at first. And I was really uncomfortable. It was not a comfortable position for me. And he asked me, like, are you comfortable? And even though in my body I knew I didn't feel comfortable immediately, I was like, yeah, I'm fine. But thankfully, he was aware and present in that moment and could tell, like, he could read my energy, like, you're not fine. This is not comfortable for you. So he untied me and he placed my arms in front of me as if I was hugging myself, and tied them that way. And then he got behind me and hugged me. And I could have almost cried, because I was so anxious, like, trying to, because if you ain't heard the story about the herpes, go check out Miniso 18. I think it was like Ode to Act Up or something. I was talking about the whole crack epidemic and stuff. It might have been, yeah, I think it was Miniso 18. Are you pop? I don't remember the title, but I know it's Miniso 18 because I was in the house. I had on a bonnet and sunglasses. I know that for a fact. Anyway, so then fast forward to later that week, I was watching somebody flog, and then I bottomed for the flogger, and I immediately pictured myself in a car wash. And that's in that moment where it clicked for me that, like, this does not have to be a sexual thing. This can be so healing. And I think it makes it even more powerful that it can be combined with sex, because we have so much trauma around sex. I don't know if this girl is trying to sing in my video. I might actually have to move. Maybe I could just turn the camera so that they aren't in it. Okay, I had to move because they keep trying to get in my video. Like, even just now, I purposely moved myself further back so that they wouldn't be in my video, and they just like started running through my video. So anyway, so kind of lead into my next point. This is definitely gonna be a 2-hour episode because I'm already at 30 minutes and I really haven't even touched the peak of the iceberg. So Afnan Khalifa is a, I guess, businesswoman, influencer. I don't know what you want to call her, right? And I'm struggling to call her something because now I don't know how to feel. So basically what happened was she made a post, and it was like, I guess she was sitting outside of a cafe or something, and I think somebody confused her for an OnlyFans model or something. And then it ended up the girl that she was talking to was also an OnlyFans model. Like, I'm not really sure what it was. But basically, like, the girl, Afnan was trying to tell the girl that, you know, there's other ways to make money without selling your body online. Like, you don't have to be an OnlyFans model to make millions. Like, you can create a digital product and that's how you can make millions, whatever. Cool. And that's true. That's fine. But this is the part that really just bothers me, because then she goes in and she starts using words like, oh, it's I want to convert as many girls as possible. Like, I want you to be saved. That's not a real business. You're like, people are making, or she didn't say that's not a real business. She was like, there's people making money with real businesses. And that, you know, I just want everybody to go to heaven. And I was just like, and the more I sat with it, because at first I was just like really annoyed, and then the more I sat with like her particular word choice, that is what really started to bother me. So I commented and I said, the idea that we need to be converted, saved, that this is not a real business, and the assumption that we won't make it into heaven is upsetting. There are a lot of people who are uneducated about the industry and make the assumption that we are all getting nude. There's a million ways to make money in this industry without showing a single private part. Lots of us have degrees and certifications and teach others how to navigate this industry and branch out. And even still, I didn't say this in this, and even if you are a person that shows your poontang online, or your penis online, or your butthole online, or your titties online, it is yours to show. Like, that is a decision that you make. The only thing I would say is just be mindful that, like, once it's on the internet, it's basically there. Like, as a person who has had their content ripped, like, be mindful of what you put on the internet. But if you're fine with showing your parts, that's fine, right? And so then somebody responded and was like, and we do more for society and charity than any of these people who make money from selling courses to naive people online. I always text my users to see if they want to see the content I create. If they get it, amazing. If they don't, it's okay. They are not buying a future promise of becoming a millionaire. They are buying a video that they want to look at. While at the same time, with my friends, we love helping other people with less resources without needing to make a show for it or to make ourselves look superior than any other. So I have over 200 something clips. Maybe out of, I think, maybe less than 100 of those clips have actually sold, but they've sold over and over. So that's still that revenue. And I have videos from when I first started in 2023 that are just now selling. Like, I had a Valentine's Day cake sit video or something like that last year for February. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year, February. And it just sold today. So it's like, when I put it out there, if somebody is looking for it, then it's there, right? They have a demand, I have the supply. I'm not forcing like, oh, I just made this cake sitting video, you need to buy it, like to somebody who's a foot fetishist or somebody who doesn't watch any kind of fetish video or any kind of porn video. I am advertising to the market that's already there. If somebody wants it, it's there. So that piece. And two is just like, I've seen so many of us, like, there's so many mutual aid funds, and it's sex workers helping sex workers and sex workers helping other people. And again, even the term sex worker is somewhat nuanced, because some people would say, and I'm sure that a Hooters girl would be upset, but some people, you could consider Hooters girls as sex workers. They are servers, yes, but inherently there's an undertone of sexual fantasy that is being sold while you're wearing those things. So, and then even some people like pole dancers, some people in the pole dancing community are just like so anti-stripper when literally the moves in pole dancing are named after the strippers who made them. Pole dancing was born out of the strip club, but there's so much just like hate and discrimination and stigmatization towards sex workers that like nobody wants to be accepting of them, or they want to downplay the contributions that we've made. So I responded to this person and I said this. And in the same token, I have to use my mind and skills to get creative with my content. And just like a digital course, my content is a digital product that will continue to make me money until I decide to remove it. There's also so much psychology that goes into it as well. So I've already talked about the psychology aspect of it all, right? I could go deeper, and I'll probably go deeper. Not probably, I will continue to go deeper as like I continue to record and make more content. But like the creativity of just coming up with the shit in the first place, and like set production, like that is a skill. Set production. Fun fact, I was in a theater tech program when I was in high school. It's like a supplement, not in my actual school, neither here nor there. But that is a skill that I have. It's like storyboarding and figure. I had like an internship with a TV production company when I was in like middle school, or it was elementary or middle school, something like that. But the point is, I have skills that are translating into the actual creation of the content, coming up with the ideas for the content, because some of them are just like I'm just in the screen flaring my nostril, but some of them are actually more in depth of like thinking out, like, okay, I want to pan from here to pan to there. And then even graphic design, coming up with my flyers and building my course and all these other things, and thinking about the background knowledge that goes in to creating content. Like, it's not, now there are some people who literally like they have the privileges of, maybe they are your more how do I want to say it? They are your more socially palatable, socially preferred body types or skin types or hair types or whatever. Like, you have certain privileges that would make you more desirable from society, so you might have a harder time or easier time than somebody else. But again, it goes into like finding your niche, finding what you're even interested in, right? Like, I am not going to create content that I'm not interested in. And I lost my train of thought for a second. That's a really pretty bird. I was like on a roll. Like, that's the thing. That's what be getting me. Like, I be on a roll and then I just be like blank brain. Crazy. Let me look back at this. Yeah, I mean, my point is just that, like, oh yeah, so some people, it might be as simple as like they could put, you know, get a couple pictures or do like it's easier for them to produce the content or make the content, or it might be more high in demand content. That's where I was going. But you still, like, I had a friend who texted me one time and she was like, I got 1,000 nudes. What can I do? Okay, here's a website that you could post them on, but baby, like, you still have to figure out how to market. Like, OnlyFans, if you're on OnlyFans does not have any internal search engine. So that means you have to make your OnlyFans and then you have to market your OnlyFans, or pay an agency to market your OnlyFans for you. Like, you just don't make an OnlyFans and that's it, right? You have to have some kind of branding, some kind of marketing. So there's still like that business skill. It is a real business. We still get taxed. Like, sex workers pay taxes. So it's just, it's, and there's this idea that everybody in the sex work industry does not want to be there, when a lot of us made that choice to be there and we're happy there, and it's afforded us to be able to do whatever we want. Like, it's given us time freedom. It's given us financial freedom, and it really helps me learn to, it's helped me learn to appreciate all of me, because again, as I've said, like I got into this thinking like foot fetish, ignore, and financial domination. Like I never would have considered making nose content, but now I can really sit in the mirror and be like, wow, like I see why niggas love my nose. Like I got the little freckles and then the nose piercings, like I can decorate my nose and all this other stuff. And so there was a quote, something else that I did this week. I attended a pleasure summit by Tanae Stewart. And it was one of those things that I just I've been on her. I found out about her from another summit I attended like a couple years ago, and it's like a witchy summit and things. And so I had been following her for a while, but then somebody else that I followed was like teaching. So I was like, okay, let me just last minute, because sometimes we sign up for emails and don't follow through. So I was just getting the emails and I wasn't paying attention to anything. But then I saw one of the people that I follow on social media, Madam Rose, she was teaching a class. So I was like, ooh, let me go check that out. And then through that's when I was like, oh my God. Like, so that was literally the past 2 days so far. I've just been reading it, right? I was just like all up in it. So one of the questions that came up during one of the sessions by Bunny Gourlay, they said, if the body is a temple, then why are the things that come from that temple dirty? And they were talking more so in the aspect of like bodily fluids and using them in sex magic. But I think that, people get hung up about, oh, why are you tattooing your body? Why are you piercing your body? Your body is a temple. Why would you do that? If my body is a temple, I'm adorning that temple. Like, that's how I choose to adorn that temple. People leave offerings and gifts at actual temples all over the world. Like, that is an offering that you're giving to it. It's a form of decoration, right? So to that even sense, and like celebrating my body when I'm creating this content. So back to the post, right? So then of course somebody's fucking pea-brain son decide they wanted to come, and they were like, so what do you sell that people are buying if you aren't exploiting yourself? So let me tie it back to the emotions, right? Because part of me is like, I'm not about to be arguing with anybody's son on the internet, like da-da-da-da. And it was also this part of like, I was trying to be present in my body of like, how do I feel? And I could feel that like, that wanting to defend myself and that anger building up. And it was like, I want to clap back with him as I'll continue to read the exchanges. Like, I want to clap back and say this and say that. But I'm like, that's not the point, right? So how I responded, I said, LOL, exploiting, in quotation marks, is an interesting word choice. The word exploiting means that I would be unfairly manipulating, using, or taking advantage of a person, situation, or resource for personal selfish gain. Considering that I am an adult who made this decision for myself and love what I do, I am not exploiting myself. And as far as the people who purchase my content, they too are also adults who make the decision to watch it because that's what they want. I do not force anyone to buy my content. Now, on to the meaningful part of your question. I currently am working on a course that teaches people how to use food in their sexual life, content creation, and in spiritual practices. As a former art teacher and someone who is pursuing a master's in art therapy, my work centers around psychology and consent. Outside of sexual wellness, I also create, sell, and teach art. So then there was a comment, not by him and not in response to this. I'll circle back to that at the end. So he responds to that and he goes, what? And he puts art in quotation marks. He goes, what art do you sell? Because it sounds like you're trying to sugarcoat you're selling sexual content. You said you sell a course on how people should use food in their sex life. So you are making money off selling sex. So you're not selling your body, you're selling sex. Is that morally correct to you? Sorry, you can try to justify it and make it sound as wholesome as you like, but you selling sexual stuff isn't anything to act like a saint over. Then comes back and says, I didn't even bother to check your page, and yet it is exactly what I assumed. You're half naked selling yourself. So please pack it in. So first of all, nobody said I was a saint. I never claimed to be a saint. It's like y'all are projecting these things on us. Y'all, and one thing at a time. So I responded and said, I'm not sugarcoating anything. It's sexual wellness. How to practice kink safely, amongst other things. It's rooted in consent and trauma-informed practices so that people can safely explore their interests, because unfortunately, the American education system fails us in that department, and that's by design, but I digress. So yes, I don't lose a bit of sleep at night because my morals are intact. Just like you, I have multiple Instagrams for different aspects of myself, so my quote-unquote art is not the main focus here. And on this one, I am just as half naked as you are on your little lifting page trying to show off your muscles. So yes, please, let's both pack it up. So, because like when I went to his page, he had like other links, and so I went to, and it was like a profile of him doing weights and stuff, but there was a picture of literally just like his bottom half. He basically had on a fucking Speedo, so you saw his dick print and you saw his like fucking muscles, and then it was like everything else was in a crop top. So we're doing the same thing, bud. Like, you're just as half naked as I am, but like, I'm making money off my shit. Are you? Like, that would be the wise decision. Because I'm not going to lie. Like, you got some nice muscles. Okay? I will squeeze them things. I will watch you. Listen, food, play, and content. I will watch you crush fruit, fucking watermelons or oranges or whatever else with your muscles. That is content right there. Like, what are we talking about? And again, it doesn't have to be sexual. Now, added bonus, you could be naked and just fucking crush oranges with your muscles if that's what you want to do. Or if you're trying to do it more, you know, friendly for Instagram or whatever other platform, it could be a zoom in on you juicing with your muscles, right? And that's what it is. But everybody, it's just, yeah. So then I felt myself kind of like, oh my, I need to go back and like keep clapping back, right? But listen, thank God that what I thought happened, I thought Afnan ended up blocking me because I couldn't see the post anymore. It was like user not found. But I don't know if a conversation between us or what, but something triggered it and her Instagram got deleted. But I thought it was interesting because somebody else commented and was like, I love the compassion display and non-judgmental tone you had for this young lady. I love that you guided her and redirected her instead of shaming her. Well done. So then Afnan responded and was like, never shaming, always guiding. And I'm like, but you literally are. Your verbiage of saying like, oh, I want to convert and I want y'all to be saved and y'all aren't going to make it into heaven and blah, 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 blah. That is shaming, but you packaged it with sprinkles. You package it with sprinkles, right? And I say all the, like, I have talked about how for me, sex work is what made me get into church. Like, I was not going to church even a couple months ago. I wasn't going to church. I had a Bible, but I wasn't reading it. I didn't buy a Bible until I think maybe like last year in like January, February. I didn't actually crack it open until October of last year. And I'm actually going to church. I'm reading, like, I can tell you different Bible verses and scriptures and things like that. And that's not to like flex, but it's like, had I not gotten into sex work, like going into sex work is when I first found out about ancestor altars and spirits and all of that stuff. Like, I always felt connected with something greater than myself, but I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know where to start. I didn't really, I didn't know anything. And then once I got into sex work, I was already, I think I was either a year into sex work or definitely at least 6 months, but I was in the practice. And then that's when I learned from Mr. Smarley, like, that's when I learned about spirituality. Like, that's when the doors opened for me. So my journey, my spiritual journey and my sex work journey are interconnected. There's no separating from them because those lenses blend together. They form the lens that, informs my practice and how I move through the world. And even in the Bible, Joshua chapter 2, Rahab. So it was like a couple weeks ago, the pastor at the church that I attend was talking about, in order to be successful, there's different types of partnerships and relationships that you need to have. And he said that one of them would be that you have to be open to unlikely partnerships. And so Joshua chapter 2 talks about Rahab, which is a harlot, a prostitute, and how Jesus, I don't remember exactly who, but the point was these two spies were told to work with Rahab. They were, because she was known as like the harlot, nobody was going to suspect these random men coming to the town and being there, other than, oh, we're going to hang out with the prostitute. So it was like, y'all are now in my house, so y'all have cover. Nobody's like coming and checking for you, and you can use my space to spy and like make your next move or whatever. But then there was that exchange of like, if I'm doing this for you, you have to take care of me and my family, right? So the idea, like, there are the and we see like with OnlyFans and even what's going on with ManyVids now is like, y'all built these CEOs and these companies and these things, like so many people have built their own companies and built their own wealth off the back of sex workers, but then always just want to leave them hanging. It's always like, you want to, and it just with any marginalized community, it's like, oh, it sounds good, let's lift them up for publicity or whatever else. And then when it's no longer convenient, when I've gotten my part of the exchange, then it's like, nah, you're not a real person, you're not worth it, you're not worthy anymore. So yeah. That was a lot, right? That was a lot. There was another movie that I watched, I think a year ago or so. It's called Gangubai, and it is about a woman, a true story, a woman who was sold into prostitution in Kamasipura, India. It's an Indian-based movie, but she was sold into prostitution, and she ended up becoming a very powerful brothel madam and activist. And so even that story, it was like she was dating this guy, and he like convinced her that they were going to get married or whatever, and he had talked to her about, I think, like stealing money or jewelry from her family, and then they got on a train and they were supposed to go somewhere. So then they get there and he sold her into prostitution. And so it's like she can't go home because she stole from her family, and now like she's no longer a virgin because she's engaging in the sex work. And so like she has to fend for herself. And then it was like, even the house mother treated her like shit. It was Gangubai, I think it's on Netflix. It was such a powerful movie. It was so good. But then she ends up getting sexually assaulted like real bad, and like the house mother didn't look out for her, and that basically was like what channel, like after that she was like, I'm not taking no shit from nobody, and she just became the baddest bitch walking. Was there another example that I wanted to use? No, I think those were the two. But yeah, so this assumption that like we're not going to make it into heaven because we're doing what we're doing. And even that, it's like heaven on earth. What is heaven? Make what is it? It's as it is here in heaven, as it is on earth here in heaven. What, y'all know what heaven and earth, that thing, like, I can't remember it, and I don't got my Bible on me, I don't remember the actual verse, but y'all know what I'm talking about, right? But that reflection of like heaven is now, and where are you placing your thoughts? Where's your presence? And I remember I was so pissed off. A family member many years ago when I was in college, my sophomore year, I had a really rough or was it junior year? It was one of them years. I had a rough year. I think it was my junior year. It was my lowest GPA, which I think only was like a 2.5, but like as someone who's always gotten like between a 3.0 was my lowest. Like I usually stayed in like the 3.2 average. But this was a 2.5. And I think like my second lowest GPS was a 2.8, and that was GPA. My second lowest was a 2.8, and that was my junior year of high school. Interesting that they were both junior years, but neither here nor there. The point was, is like, that's when I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I was in another toxic relationship. Like, there was a lot going on. And I was talking to a family member, and they were, basically negating my experiences, and was like, because then I also started talking about just my relationship with my father. And this family member was like, if you want to be happy, be happy. And I'm just like, nigga, why wouldn't I want to be happy? Like, what the fuck do you mean, right? And so now, all these years later, however many it's been, at least, no, it hasn't been at least 10 years, but it's been at least 5. It's been at least 5 years. We're going on 10. This year might be 10. It might be 10 this year. But the point is, when I was in that space, I was like, how dare you say that? Because obviously, if it was that easy and I wanted to be happy, like, I would be. I wouldn't be going through this. We would not be having this conversation right now. But now, with all of my wisdom and knowledge and experiences, it's, if you want to be happy, you have to make the choice to be happy. And how do you do that? Focusing on the present moment. Now, I could sit here and I could be thinking about, like, are there some bills that need to be paid this week? Absolutely, right? But I'm doing the best I can with what I got. And it's like, I'm going to trust that it's going to be worked out, that everything, like, I'm at the point where I can just be like, if it's for me, it'll come. And even in the past couple of days, like, I've had random experiences, right? Like, part of the conversation in church today too was just like money. And, we put all this negative energy on money, or all these negative connotations on money, but it's like, money needs direction. So looking, and it's not even, not to judge yourself, but it's like, looking, where are you sending your money? What are your thoughts about money? What are you doing with the money? And we associate money with labor, like, and it's like, oh, I have to go to work and clock in. And like, we put these caps on ourselves because we're thinking very logistically. Like, yes, it makes sense. If I go to work, then I'll get money, and then they'll send me a check, and then so on and so forth. So that it's that loop. And when we're so focused on that, we don't think about all the other ways that money could come in. Like, I've had friends who, just because they've, we're talking and they're asking me questions afterwards, they're just like, a token appreciation, and send me a tip. I wasn't expecting that $20 to come. Random checks in the mail. Like, I got a random refund check for $100 from Barnes & Noble from whatever unclaimed funds for however many years ago. I had, like, my brother asked me to make a flyer for him, and I was just doing it just to do it. And then he was like, no, I'm going to pay you for this. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, I have so much fun doing graphics. Why don't I start doing graphics for other people? Like, it literally doesn't take me that much time to do it. And that's that extra source of income. Like, I helped one of my other friends the other day with some shit that was going on, and they wanted to give me gas money, and I was like, I know that they don't have it, right? Like, do I need gas? Sure. But like, I know that they don't have it, and it's fine. And I was like, you got other bills to pay, like, don't worry about it. It's going to be taken care of. And they were like, you know what, I got this big ass box of change, like, just take the change, because this person in particular don't fuck with change. I don't know why she don't, but I'm grateful, because then when I sat there and I counted up all that change, it was over $30 worth of change. So you ended up giving me gas money anyway, right? But that wasn't something that I woke up today like, yeah, I'm gonna get a box of change. Oh, somebody's gonna tip me today. Somebody, those weren't ideas. And so when we're so hyper focused on, like, this is the pathway, we shut off all these possibilities. Like, and so to romanticize your life is just like, like, you can do that when you're more present, when you're more playful with things. Like, okay, so in the past 2 days, I got a random box of change here. I got somebody else cash apping me for something I did, and somebody else cashing me up. Then I'm getting this check from here. Like, what's another way that I can get surprise money today? What's another way money's gonna find its way to me? And then that same token of, like, romanticizing your life, of like, I could be sitting here and I could just be talking and being very focused on the thing on the screen. But it's also just like being really like, wow, the trees are dancing. Like, and I don't know how much you can see it for those of you who are watching. Like, whenever I see the trees blowing in the wind, I always say the trees are dancing. Like, and just the thought of, like, you could say the wind is blowing the trees. There's a gust of wind and whatever, but it's like, I like to think of it as the trees are dancing, because it's a way that they sway. It's sensual in how the trees are moving. And it's just so beautiful. The backdrop of the clouds and the skies and even the blades of grass and the dandelions, like it's so beautiful. But when do we really stop to appreciate that things? Or even like if you're in the shower, like you can just go in the shower and, you know, wash your body, whatever, move forward. But like really taking the time to be like, wow, I'm cleaning my body, really feeling it, feeling the growths. Like, you know, my arm is a little bit hairy, but it's not as hairy as my armpits. I finally shaved my legs. I was keeping on to my leg hair. But even that, it's like, you know, years ago, I would have thought of like, I always kept my legs and my poontang and my armpit shaved. Like they were always shaved. And now it's like, I think I've lost track of how much time it's been. I finally shaved my poontang, and like my hair don't grow nothing crazy. So it hasn't been looking crazy. But I finally shaved my legs and my poontang the other day. I started with my poontang and then I did my legs, and even that, it's been so many months, but I started to get to a point where I was uncomfortable. But like even my armpits, I'm like, my armpits don't stink. And armpit fetish is a big thing. So like it doesn't bother me. So it's had, you know, this appreciation. It's made me relook, because again, where do we get this idea of like, why are we so grossed out about hair that comes from our body, that is it's a protective mechanism of like, I don't know the science behind it, but obviously like our body produces this thing because at some point in our evolution it was necessary. So why do we ostracize people and ourselves for this natural thing? Why should I feel ashamed for my body bleeding when some people don't experience that? And that's something that they like, that it's a natural life cycle. It's a natural form of the body. Like, why should I be ashamed of like my armpit hair because I'm in a femme body, but the nigga down there, I could see his hair out his armpits from here. And that's okay because he's in a male body. But because I'm feminine, it's unladylike to have body hair. If it was really not something that my body should do, my body wouldn't do it. But it does. Like, and so it's crazy to see how like, so then to even go back to the conversation with the guy, it's like, you know, you're trying to sugarcoat it and you're trying to do this. And it's like, first of all, somebody has to fucking do it, because sex sells because sex is considered taboo. And I've talked about, I forget the episode, I think it's asparagus pussy. I forget what number that is, but I was talking, if I'm correct, I was talking about consent, and I did a project for my art therapy class about the different paraphilic sexual dysfunction and paraphilic disorders classified in the DSM. And I talked about it there of just like, you know, and even we see with Epstein and everything else of like, people are not taught about sex on purpose so that people don't have the language to fend for themselves. So people don't know how to experience themselves. People don't know what is actually safe. So people like, and then, so that's by design. Like that's why in school, in health class, you're not learning about the body. And that's speculation, I guess, in a way. Like I can't say that those are like hard facts, right? But like as someone who is a teacher who has been involved and just seen how things like that really is designed. It's designed to keep people ignorant so that people cannot advocate for themselves. Whatever that advocation looks like. So yeah, and it's like, and I'm grateful to my mother who, so I mentioned before how the day that I was born, my mother and brother were diagnosed with HIV. So ever since I was a child, sexual education and sexual health has been something that is very, very important to me. It's been, you know, my mom, and it's crazy, right? Part of all the things that I'm talking about, it was like, recently my brother did a panel, and that's a big deal because my brother was always very shy about it, because as a heterosexual black male, like in the stigma associated with HIV, of being the gay man's disease, and all these other like just all of that. But it was like, it took him a really, really long time to be so open about it and to advocate about it. And I am so proud of him. Like, my mom did advocacy. So obviously advocacy is a value of mine. Like, my mom would advocate, but she only did so much because she wanted to protect my brother. So then when my brother came out, it was like, whoa, like now all of us can really come out, because it really was, you know, centered around him. And for the longest time, and I bring this up because at this panel, this was the first time that somebody, like, it was him and some other women, and they were sharing their experiences, and it was just so beautiful. And one of the ladies was talking about how, like, she worked in HIV spaces, and then she had found out that when she was pregnant with her second child, she, like, went to go get tests. I think they were just like routine blood work or something, and they called her back into the clinic, and they were like, you know, you need to abort this baby. And she was like, no. And then they basically ostracized her, like, oh, you're gonna be a terrible mother. Like, why would you subject your kid to this, that, and the third? And thank God her child was born HIV negative. Right? But imagine, and it's thriving in her life right now. And even my mom, after she had me, she had to sign paperwork saying that she wasn't gonna have kids anymore. And it's like, their HIV has even come such a long way, because it was thought to be like a death sentence. The people that are living now, that are in, you know, their 70s and 80s, and some even in their fucking 90s, and people who were born with it, like, the world did not expect them to be here. And the woman was talking about how, like, you know, we can be so, you know, why me, why me, why me? But we are not given any hardship for no reason. I was watching, kind of half-heartedly watching, because we were playing Cards Against Humanity yesterday. But Trevor Noah has a new special, and one of the questions he was saying is, who will you be when history calls? And it was like going back to that, like, purpose of, like, as hard as it was for me to, this woman, of, you know, to kind of accept that, it was like, you know, I think about how many parts of my life that God prepared me for this. And when she was in, like, a home and stuff, everybody back in the 90s, like, everybody was preparing to die. And everybody was saying to her, like, yo, like, you're gonna die. But then finally somebody else was like, no, stop speaking that over her, because we might be preparing to die, but she's preparing to live. And here she is, I think, like, 35 years later, like, and if she did not have that lived experience, she can't make the way for the next person. So in that, it was like this panel or whatever. And then the panel speaker, because my whole family, like, went to go support my brother speaking, and the moderator turned it on to us and was like, the family perspective. And so I ended up speaking first, which was my first time in that setting, like, because I've talked about it here and there on the podcast, but it was my first time, like, speaking in front of a group, in front of the group, sharing my experience. And I had said, you know, like, growing up, I have my memories very shoddy from when I was a kid, but I have memories of, like, you know, my brother had friends over, and I knew he had to take his medicine. It was like, okay, 8:00 p.m. was, he had to take it twice a day, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And 8 p.m. was the Disney Channel movie. So if we had friends over, I would be like, yo, Disney Channel movie is on. And that was his cue to step away and take his medicine. And I was taking on that role. Or, like, you know, going back to, you know, sexual health has been a foundation for my whole life. I'm in elementary school and in middle school knowing about sex, knowing what a condom is, how to use a condom, knowing what an STD is, knowing the ways that you can get an STD. And it's like, but if I speak up about that, I remember I think it was high school, it was at high school or middle school, but during one of Obama's terms, somebody had said, like, oh, Obama's speech gave me AIDS last night. And that really just pissed me off, because how ignorant do you sound? Like, that's just so fucking stupid, right? And I wanted to speak up and say something and be like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, you can't get it like really go into the nitty and gritty of it. But then I was like, no, because then it opens the door of like, well, how do you know so much? Like, why do you know so much? Why do you care? Right? So for a long time, I didn't speak up about these things. And I also felt like it wasn't my story to tell because I am negative. So it belongs to my brother and my mother because it's their experience. But it was like through that, you know, and even I'm not going to go super into it, but even since then, I was just like, you know, after I spoke, then my sister and my mother spoke. And then when we broke for lunch, this woman came up to me and she thanked me for sharing my story. And one of the things that she said to me was, don't let anybody tell you that this isn't part of your story. Like, y'all were put together as a family for a reason. Like, y'all have a powerful story all together. And I think even in that, like, you know, how I view death and things, like my mom has always looked at my birthday as like a celebration of life, because when they were diagnosed, my brother was 5 and he's 36 now. Like, that theoretically, statistically shouldn't have happened. So my birthday is always a celebration because here we are 29 years later, thriving, when we were told we should be 6 feet under. And even like my cousin that I'm named after, she died young. Like, she was still in her teens when she died. And my mom named me after her as like, to live to see your child grow. And there's so much power in that because my cousin didn't get to live her life and to the fullest. And then my mom was scared that she wasn't going to see me live my life. So how much power and beauty is in that? So yeah, that was like, oh man. So I guess I'll just move into of like, you know, ancestral healing, or let me see if there was some more things. I've had a lot of like familial experiences this week that have been in that idea of really connecting with my ancestors. A note that like God, higher power, source, universe, Allah, Yahweh, whoever you seek for higher spiritual guidance, uses us to share love. And that is like, you know, one quote. And I have a bunch of artwork that I used to make in college, because in college my artwork focus was on HIV advocacy. And then in grad school, when I was still actively, because right now I'm on a break, but my artwork and my projects have always been tying into sex work. And then whenever I can combine the two, I do. Because even then, it's like sex workers of not having access to resources, of like, you know, fear that if I go to whatever place to seek services to help me, whether that be for treatment of something or prevention of something or whatever else, it's like, I risk even inherently, like if I have a session with somebody and they harm me, it's like, well, what were you doing in that space in the first place? Or you're a sex worker, you're going to jail, but like they just assaulted me, you know? So why am I being reprimanded and ostracized and treated less than? And even it's like, you know, we demonize, taking it out of sex work, we demonize people who are, you know, committing robbery or harming other people, but then you fail to look at what got them there in the first place. You want to arrest them and charge them a fine and make them pay some like whatever associated court fees because they were stealing food from the grocery store. But look at how high fucking grocery prices are in the first place, and it doesn't match the living wage. So you want to blame the victim without looking at the circumstances that put them there, right? And again, we all, like, you could go, well, we all have a choice and da-da-da. Yes, and like multiple things could be true at once. We are doing the best we can with what we got. And if you've been raised in a food desert all your life, or in like food insecurity and whatever else, and you don't know when your next meal is going to be, but you got, you know, your parent is constantly working, so you're the oldest sibling and you have to take care of your 5 youngest siblings, and food needs to be on the table because the kids got to eat. They got to eat. Then what? but you don't want to ask mom for, it's so many different things and so many different nuances that go into it. Yeah. What else? Humanity. Like, even I was watching on Amazon Prime, I was watching this movie, and it was funny because I was like, as I'm combing out my locks, I got like 20 something locks. As I'm combing out my locks, I was just like going through different movies on Amazon and different shows, and then I kept seeing like this one particular movie kept coming up as I'm scrolling. Like, I never pressed any buttons to change the thing, but it kept coming up every time I scrolled. So I was like, all right, obviously I'm meant to watch this movie. So I put it on, and it's called Sarah's Oil. It's the true story of Sarah Rector, who she was a child in Oklahoma that had inherited land like after well, I think there was still like segregation and all the shit from slavery still happening, but she was one of the kids that had inherited land, and she had inherited like a massive like acreage. And so, she was saying that God spoke to her that there was oil on that land, because this was during whatever period of time that was with the oil rushes and whatever. So God had spoke to her. Her family was just like, girl, what are you talking about? But also like supportive, like, okay, we're gonna ride with it. So she's just like, little black girl, just like, I have land, I have oil, I need somebody to do it, because she didn't have access to oil riggers and things like that. So she's like going, her and her dad go downtown, and she can read, she can write, her parents can't read, so she had to do that. So people don't want to listen to the child and then disrespecting the man, but they, it was all of that. And so finally she comes across a oil company that's like, okay, we'll check it out. So they had her sign a lease of saying like that you can be on the property for 6 months, and if you it was like a royalty contract and all this stuff, whatever. So they had up to 6 months. At 3 months, they said there's nothing here, like we're done, we're not going to do this anymore. And then they said don't even worry about the equipment, because it would cost us more to take the equipment than it would to just leave it here. So she's like, okay, but she's still like, no, like God told me there's oil here, there's like oceans of oil, I'm going to keep pushing. So she found some local people. So it's a long story of basically like these white people went so far as to, they kept coming back and kept trying to get in the way and kept trying to be sneaky about like, oh, well, they tried to like sue her. It was crazy. And it's like, well, all of that is confirmation to me that if there really was no oil here, y'all wouldn't be going so hard to try to get this land back from me, to take this land from me. Y'all are going so hard. It's like they killed, it was like some clause or something. They killed children. They killed children so that they can get their land, so that they could monopolize all the oil in the area. And they tried to kill her. And it's just like going back to the last episode that I posted, like it is fascinating and upsetting to me of how adults treat children, how white people treat black people, how white people treat black children. It all because of skin color. When we all have like we are living in the same universe, right? And this also took me back to when I was an RA, and I've lived so many lives. To only be 29, I've had so many experiences that I'm grateful for. But when I was an RA and when I was teaching, I used to do as a RA, we had to do like different events. I think it was like once a month or once per so ever, whatever. But then when I was teaching, I took this same exercise and applied it to a social justice project that I was doing, which ironically, at the same time that I was doing this social justice project, was the same day them crackers stormed the Capitol, okay? But they be saying the black people's unhinged. But anyway, so the exercise is the identity walk, and I don't remember where I got this from. It's very popular, but it's basically like you have different identities, like your age, your race, your ethnicity, your your ability, whether that's mental, physical, and just like a whole bunch of different categories, right? How much money do you make, classism, and all that. So, and there's a series of prompts. And the idea is that when you read the prompt, you go to the identity that most resonates for you. And it's always been really fascinating to me that to the questions, what identity are you most proud of? And what identity brings you the most pain? And for me, that's always, or it has been, it's been a while. I want to, maybe I should go back and look to that. But consistently so far, and I don't see why it would change, is my race as a Black woman. And even that of like, there's so many like the intersectionalities of our personality. It's one thing to be Black. It means something different to be a Black woman versus a Black man or a Black non-binary, because then you throw in that gender identity or sexuality, right? So when I look at my labels, Black woman, bisexual, heteroromantic, I am assigned female at birth, and I did cisgender. That's where I was going. So I agree with my assignment at birth. What is something else that I can say? Like, there's so many different parts, and even to be able to say like I'm a Black bisexual woman, for me the bisexuality, that was a part that like it took me a while to accept it. Even like I don't remember if it was an episode. I know I did an episode with Goldie, oh bitch you, I forgot you were kinky. And I don't remember if she said it in the episode or if it was a conversation we were having off camera, but it was something about when I was dating the 3 guys at once, I was very adverse to the label solo poly. And I feel like my aversion to bisexuality and solo poly were this idea of imposter syndrome, but also not having enough information. So for me, I couldn't accept the term bisexuality because I like to date men, unfortunately. I haven't had an experience where I've felt I've met a girl that I'm like attracted enough to date. But for me, I find myself in heterosexual relationships. Like, that's what I like. And so it was very hard for me to say like, oh, I'm bisexual. And even then it was like, I've only had like a very small, like literally 2 encounters with other women. And it's always been something that like, technically more, but like actual sexual interactions with women or 2. But it was like really, it was hard for me to accept that, because I was like, well, one, I don't have that much sex with women, if ever. And then I also don't see myself wanting to date a woman. So am I really bisexual? And then like, lesbians get so mad at bisexuals because, oh, pick a side, you're not really gay and da-da-da. But when you break it down of like bisexuality, that means I'm attracted to 2 different sexes, right? And so then even like pansexual is like multiple, I forget the exact definition, but for me, in this moment, I can't say I identify with pansexual because everyone that I have actually interacted with and have done anything with has either identified as a man or a woman. Now, if I happen to get into some kind of dynamic with a person that is non-binary, then I would say, according to definition, then I might adopt pansexuality, right? But for right now, that's not something that rings true for me. And so also recognizing that our identities can change based on our experiences, right? So there's so much in that. But yeah, it's like being Black, being a woman, being a Black woman who is bisexual, like, and I think about the ancestors that either, and this is part of the pleasure conference. This is one of the things that came up of like, this idea of pleasure as an offering, and what does that look like? And when you hear the word pleasure, we automatically think like, oh, it has to be sexual. But pleasure is something that pleasure can be comforting. I experience pleasure when I have my hot cup of tea in the morning. When I get my hot cup of tea and I get in a blanket and I read my book, or I listen to my playlist, or when I get a foot massage, like that is bringing me a sense of comfort. When I was in my own apartment, when I was living alone, like I feel a sense of pleasure when I get off of work from a long day and I come in the house, and if I want to strip butt naked, I can get in the shower, I could eat right then, I could go to fuck to sleep if I need to. I experience pleasure in that sense of like, what do I need for comfort in this moment right now? And that doesn't have to involve anybody else but me. So redefining, like, what does pleasure look like for you? What could pleasure look like for you? And then, you know, taking it a step further of sensuality. What does pleasure look like sensually? And that could be, again, something that is more, the next one would be, this is in this framework, Tanae Stewart had gave, it was like, there's 3 types of pleasure. Pleasure for comfort, pleasure for sensuality, and pleasure in eroticism. Is that what it? Yes. And sensuality is pleasure that engages or activates the senses. So even like, if I want to take it a step further of like, maybe I got that blanket because I want to be wrapped up right now, but there's also a difference between a fuzzy blanket and a weighted blanket or whatever, and how that's interacting with my senses. Or even just the touch of like, maybe I want the blanket because I want to be held. And so maybe I can hug myself right now and rub myself. I don't need another person to do that. I want to hug, I can hug myself. I want to take a breath break for that because that's a lot. If I want to hug, I can hug myself. But we always think we have to get this from somebody else. And again, it's not a bad thing, but that's just something to notice of how often do we reach out to someone else for our pleasure. And then when we take it the step further of like, eroticism and that sacred sexuality of actually engaging in a sexual act, whether that's penetration or not, because then we also need to broaden our definition of sex. What does sex look like? And I was talking about last week, like some people don't consider oral sex, but it is. So there's a debate of like, chastity and things like that. But it's like, oh, a man is like, I can never lock my dick up. I bet they're not having sex, or maybe they're having too much sex, or whatever the case is, whatever theories y'all got out there. But it's like, again, a lot of men in chastity are having more sex, but you have that requires you to broaden your perspective on what sex is. But the very little sexual education that we get is rooted in heterosexual or heteronormative sex, penis and vagina. Eater. I think even as I continue to develop this food play course, and I promise y'all it's going to be out at the time I'm recording this, it's May 2nd, May 3rd, something like that. It's going to be out before May, but I keep getting all these ways like, oh my God, I want to add this. And I'm definitely going to continue to expand on this. But this first offering, I'm like, all right, well, yeah, but I'm excited. But even that, it's like, if we're taking it in a food play sense, like a comfort food, maybe I masturbate. Okay, maybe I masturbate using some ice. Maybe I masturbate using ice, and then afterwards I bring myself down after I done flick the motherfucking bean. I mean, crush that thing, okay? But after I've done that, maybe I comfort myself with a piece of chocolate cake, because I love chocolate cakes. And then I could heat it up and then get some vanilla ice cream. Ooh, that's fun. And then I could put on my favorite show or my favorite movie and go to sleep. Or listen, putting together a playlist. And it doesn't even have to be that, like, the masturbation. It could just be, I decide, what? I feel good, but I don't necessarily feel like going through all the what am I trying to say? Whistles and bells. Bells and whistles. That's what I was trying to say. I don't feel like going through all the bells and whistles of masturbating, because I remember one time I was with my former partner and we was getting ready to get nasty, and I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't feel like cleaning up my squirt. I really don't. Like, you could come today. I don't feel like coming. I actually don't even know. Like, bite me and kiss me, but I don't think I want you to touch my clitoris, because if I squirt right now, I'm gonna be pissed off of having to clean up. Like, do not make me ink. And so in that moment, it was in just that awareness. So even if I, like, I feel a little bit of erotic energy, but I don't feel like really flicking the bean for real, I can put on lingerie and get that cake and ice cream, and maybe I'll watch a sexy movie, and I can get that pleasure from there, right? Um so yeah. So then, taking that back to ancestor healing in all of this, right? And thinking of that as an offering, which that idea was like, whoa, what do you mean? Because again, like, pleasure as an offering to my ancestors, like, my grandmama don't need to see me up in the spirit realm whacking off. Like, that's crazy, right? But again, looking at different areas of pleasure. So when I think about, when I get all worked up as I'm continuing my entrepreneurial journey, and it's like, I've had a job ever since I was legal to have the job, and I've been working. I've maintained several ones, so it's programmed in me, and the people around me are like, go to work, work equal money, money equals pay bills, money, bills paid means stability, whatever else, like, whatever mathematical equation or whatever things you've learned all your life, that has been programmed into me, and I see how it still plays out when I'm talking to other people. And by allowing myself to rest, that is a form of ancestral healing, because my ancestors have paved a way. Like, they weren't afforded this same ability to rest. Another thing that I came across was so this and I'll add it on the screen, but it says, so you mean to tell me that someone down your ancestry line survived being chained to other human bodies for several months in the bottom of a disease-infested ship during the Middle Passage, lost their language, customs, and traditions, picked up the English language as best they could while working free of charge from sun up to sundown, as they watched babies sold from out their arms and women raped by ruthless slave owners, took names with no last names, no birth certificates, no heritage of any kind, braved the Underground Railroad, survived the Civil War to enter into sharecropping, learned to read and write out of sheer will and determination, faced the burning crosses of the KKK, averted their eyes at the black bodies swinging from ropes hung on trees, fought in world wars as soldiers only to return to America as boys, marched in Birmingham, hosed in Selma, jailed in Wilmington, assassinated in Memphis, segregated in the South, ghettoed in the North, ignored in history books, stereotyped in Hollywood, and in spite of it all, someone in your family line endured every era to make sure you would get here. But you receive one rejection, face one obstacle, lose one friend, get overlooked, and you want to quit. How dare you entertain the very thought of quitting? People you will never know survived from generation to generation so that you could succeed. Don't you dare let them down. It is not in our DNA to quit. So going back to my ancestors' wildest dreams, like, the fact that I can sit here right now, to whoever is watching this, whoever is listening to this, the fact that I can sit here right now and just talk as freely as I am is an act of resilience. It speaks to the, and I know in your spiritual journey, ancestors are always going to be your first line of defense, because without them, breath break. Without them, you would not be here. And even going back to, you know, the sex offering of pleasure, whatever else, you know, masturbation, as a woman, as a black woman, like taking back my sexuality, I have ancestors that whose names I don't know, but were raped, had their babies still stolen from them. But I have been afforded the freedom to not only talk about my sexuality and experience but to experience my sexuality freely. Have I been assaulted? Yes. But I've been afforded the opportunities to even like take those experiences and 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 see how they have brought me into reclaiming my power. Now I think I'm at like an hour and 40. I don't want to be too long because I could like this past 2 weeks has been crazy and I could really go on. Like I did some astrology chart mapping and stuff. And so like last night, my Lilith is in Leo, which is in the 5th house. I'm still learning about astrology, but something I've talked about, and I think I talked about it in Niggas Like Noses too, I think, was this, you know, or maybe not that episode, whatever episode, but I've talked about a lot about how even my journey as a Dom, you know, all my life I've talked about how I want to be more assertive. And so me going on this Dom journey has been about me creating those boundaries and really prioritizing myself and playing with these ideas of power dynamics. Come to find out, Lilith and Leo in the 5th house, what did it say? Do I have those notes? It was like Lilith and Leo in the 5th house. So I forget what the actual questions were. But it was basically about like, what is your shadow and how a kink can help you heal that shadow. I think that's what it was. But anyway, basically it was saying that the kink that I should explore is power dynamics. What better way to explore power dynamics than to be a Dom? And so people, you know, I could go on a rant about astrology, or people just like, oh, because, you know, I've always said like, oh, I'm a Virgo, like, listen, Virgoat, baby. I'm a proud Virgo through and through, right? But there are a lot of aspects of like, even though I identify as a Virgo mainly because that's what my birthday is associated with, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, I don't really agree. Like, I really don't think I'm judgmental, and I really don't think I'm like super analytical, and I really like there's, you know, those are the two ones that we get the most. But then in like, and so I see in some ways how like I've started to see like, okay, I can see how my intention wasn't judgmental, but the impact came off as judgmental. I can see how I can be very analytical about certain things, but also like not, you know, thinking about, I think even, so the point is where I'm going with that is that like the general public is very surface level with astrology. Like, really, anybody knows, most people know their sun sign, which is your birthday. It's according to the day of your birthday, whatever month that falls in. Now people are starting to get more familiar with their big three, which is your sun, moon, and rising. So your sun, birthday, your moon is how you show up emotionally, and your rising is like basically your personality, how people perceive you. So even sometimes when people say like, and I think I'm pretty grounded. Like, I'm unhinged for sure. But I do agree with the grounding. I've always been kind of grounded. But a lot of people will be like a little bit surprised because I am just like, well, my moon and rising are in Aries, like being spicy as fuck and impulsive. And even this is what I want to say, right? Of like, impulsive has this negative connotation to it. Like, Aries energy is known for like raw, passionate, like, oh, I like desire, like, yes, this feels good, let's go with it, like take off and run with it. And even, you know, the year of the fire horse, like this energy of like, yes, like it lights me up inside. And so you want to act quickly. And so But we throw impulsive on it, and then it makes me feel like, damn, like, oh yeah, that was an impulsive purchase, or this was. But it's like, in that moment, that's what lit me up, right? That was the fuel to my fire. That's what really got me excited about things. And there was another word that I had wanted to replace impulsive with, but I think even like and I'm still learning about certain things. I'm still diving deep into my chart. Um, but like Mercury rules communication. My Mercury is in Libra, and Libra is about balance. And so something for me when I communicate, something that I've always kind of had experienced a challenge with, is that I'll overthink the things I want to say so as not to offend people, because I don't want to come off judgmental, or I want to come off like I know exactly what I'm talking about. So oftentimes I may hold my tongue in things because I don't want to give the wrong impact, and sometimes it ends up happening anyway, like, because I can't control how somebody perceives me. I can't control somebody's reaction to me, because everybody is experiencing the world and other people from their perspective and their lived experiences. So I can't take anything personal. And so I can only do the best I can with what I have. But yeah, like, and so sometimes I'll sit here and I'll just like stew on, oh well, maybe I should say this, and da-da-da, and I'll either not end up saying anything at all, or then I'll feel this pressure to speak faster than I need to, and then I get all jumbled up in my words and I'm stressed out like I shouldn't have said anything in the first place. So it's just like, when you really break down. And so last night I went on this whole thing of like asteroids, because Lilith isn't an asteroid or a planet, but it's like, apparently it's just like this point in the sky of like when the moon's its furthest or something like that. But basically, Black Moon Lilith in your chart shows you where your shadows are, but also like, just like you have a shadow, that'll show you where your power is. So like, someone who has always had a lot of sexual energy and has a lot of sexual knowledge of like, this is me taking my power back, of like speaking out about these sexual experiences and how they've shaped me and how it could be a very beautiful experience. But you have to afford yourself that first, and exploring that through power dynamics. Like, when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, like, and there's always some things that are on my chart that I'm like, when I see it, I'm like, that makes so much fucking sense. That makes so much fucking sense. So I just want to put that 2 cents in about astrology. Wow, there's like, oh my God, there's so much. Like, what else can I say? Did I really finish my thoughts on offering? Oh yeah, so like ancestor healing, in that, to go back to that. So yeah, looking at pleasure as a form of comfort, of like, I had ancestors that were working the fields. What do you mean? Like, I could go in the house and drink a cup of tea. I could get off work and go to my own house that I pay bills for, that I'm getting paid. Like, I'm getting paid to own this house, or rent this house, or rent this space, whatever. Like, yeah, okay, the bills might be high, the bills be billing, but my name is on a lease. I'm actually receiving money to pay for this, and yeah, groceries is high, yeah, gas is high, yeah, blah, 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 but I'm receiving money in exchange for my time to have the things around me that I want. And then I can get off work and relax. I could put on I could watch the show I want to watch. That's crazy as hell. That's wild as hell. That's in my wildest dreams, right? Oh, I can have sex with who I want to have sex with. I can get on a camera and post on the enters of net that I'm having sex. sex. Like, that's crazy. That is a wild thought to my ancestors. That's a wild thought. So taking that out of the sexual context, but also like, even the idea of like, whether it's partner sex or the solo masturbation, the solo sex, I can experience this moment for pleasure's sake. I can touch myself. I have agency over my body and how I experience this orgasm or not. And like also taking away this attachment to orgasm. Like the orgasm, and I'm going to do a separate thing on this, on like orgasm denial and things like that. But anyway, the idea of like the orgasm as the point of sex. No, it's the experience, going back to being in this present now. What feels good for me right now? And like I said in that example, I wasn't thinking that squirting all over the place was going to be a good feeling, because somebody got to clean that shit up, and I'm tired. I'm tired, boss. Like, I don't want to do this shit no more, grandpa. I'm tired, grandpa. Well, that's too damn bad. Like, that's how it was really feeling. Okay, like, yeah, I got a waterproof blanket, but I still gotta wrap that shit up, and then I gotta wash that, and then because I gotta wait to wash that, I don't gotta back up, so now I can't even have sex for the however many days. Like, it's too much mental steps, right? But to go back again, it's like, so what do you mean though that I can engage in a sexual act and like not want to come? I don't have to come if I don't want to, and if I don't come, I can still be in the moment of like, okay, yeah, maybe I didn't ejaculate all over the place, but it felt really good to be bit. It felt really good to have your fingers slowly trace across my collarbone. It felt really good to have you, pulling on my hair as you're ramming me from behind or whatever else like that. The multiple sensations that are happening of experiencing that, and even, it's like they wouldn't have had the space or the time or whatever to do that. And then also, so something else that I was gonna talk about is like, is some people, when it approaches like, ancestor work is going to be your first line of defense. That's where you want to start. But for some people who are adopted, who never knew their family, their biological family, it's like, well, where do I start? I don't know these names. And just like broadening it up. A book that I really loved is the Book of Juju by Juju Bay, and there was a part that she talked about of like looking at Mother Earth as your ancestor. We all came from Mother Earth. We're all going to return to Mother Earth, whether you get cremated or you get buried or whatever. But it's like this cycle of life, and that we are connected. The same higher power, whatever that is for you, that created the trees, that created this beautiful blue bird that I'm looking at right now, created me. We all came from this consciousness. We are consciousness experiencing itself in different forms. The same energy that created the grass, that created the trees, that created the sky, that created the clouds, that created me is consciousness. So we are conscious, like everything, reality is a mirror. That's what all that means, is that we are constantly experiencing, like whatever's going on internally is what's reflected externally. So to solve the issue is always to go internally and reflect and refine and go from there. Because again, I could be sitting here and how many times have I stopped to just appreciate the beautiful colors? Like even the trees right there, it's like so many different shades of green and orange and red and brown against the beautiful blue sky. It's just, wow. There's some white in there. Like it's really beautiful, and so much love wrapped in. The same force that created that is the same force that created me. How my hair grows out of my body, how the blood that flows inside of my body, and even to think about that, of like, we just look at the present tense, but like, how hard is your body working on the inside? My heart is beating. When I have headphones in sometimes and I'm not listening to anything, I can hear my heart beating. And then I play with my breath to see, can I slow it down? Like, why is my heart beating so fast? And playing around with that and just really being like, wow, romanticize, like, wow. I could sit here and focus again. I could sit here and focus on how everything is just too damn high. That's true. It's too damn high. It shouldn't be that. But like, instead, I'm choosing to be happy in this moment with how it feels outside, how it looks outside, and just how fascinating all of this shit is. Like, We take things so seriously. And that's not to say, y'all, Lord have mercy, there's a caterpillar on this damn blanket, and that actually scared the shit out of me. But that just brought back a memory, and it's crazy that I'm a little bit, I'm not grossed out. I have a little bit of the creepy crawlies, because I'm terrified of worms. I don't like worms. I don't know what it is. And caterpillars have started to kind of fall in that realm too. Y'all, oh no, I'm sorry, Callie. He blew away. He blew away. I was trying to show y'all the caterpillar. My bad. Ooh. But anyway, me and my brother used to collect caterpillars. So when I got like really scared of that, I don't know, but that threw me off. Jump scare. What was I talking about? I was talking about romanticizing and just being joyful. But I don't know what thought I was in the middle of. But yeah, like all I have is right now. I can choose to be present in this moment and highlight all these beautiful things for you all that are watching and listening. Or I could be worried about all the shit that I got to get done this week because I'm going to the beach. And when I'm at the beach, I want to be present at the beach and actually, like, spend time with my family. And I don't know when's the last time I went to the beach, but then it's like, oh my God, well, if I spend too much time at the beach and not focus on this, then, I don't have all my content scheduled for the next week, and I'm gonna be at the beach all week. And like, I don't necessarily want to work all week while I'm at the beach. So I could go down that rabbit hole of thinking like, oh my God, how is it gonna get done? And then this needs to be paid at the end of the week, but like this deposit hasn't hit yet. I could do all of that, or I could be present right here, right now. What else do I want to talk about? There was, I've talked about the Bible, and I know in episode 60, Calm My Asshole, I was talking about the Neville Goddard book, At Your Command, and how, again, there is a lot of hang up with Christianity, rightfully so. And I was talking about ancestors. Yes, ancestors. So, a lot of people get hung up on, I don't know who my ancestors were. So when you broaden it up to looking at the earth as an ancestor and engaging in her, how can you engage with the earth's energy? Going outside and just letting the sun hit your skin, going outside and letting the wind blow across your face, or maybe you're in a car right now, so you roll down the window and you let the gusts come in. Walking barefoot. Like, the white people was on to something. At first I was like, y'all is weird taking your shoes off and walking in the grass barefoot. I do that all the time. I'll be with my friends. They're like, Mango, where does your shoes go? I want to connect with the earth. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm sure as hell taking my shoes off. Frolicking, like niggas frolicking. It's so much fun to just run in the fucking grass like it's a movie. Romanticize your life because you like, oh, I could go on and on and on. So the earth is an ancestor, but also that I got presented with the idea of social ancestors. And what does that look like? And so social ancestors are the people who came before you, because the ancestors are people that came before you. So the social ancestors would be people who are in the same marginalized identities that you identify with. There are other sex workers and queer people that were born before me that had to pave the way for me to be here. As a bisexual woman, to be able to talk about that on the Enters of Ned, for people who haven't come out yet or weren't afforded like the idea to even come out. That what do you mean you're telling people you don't know? Like, because I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know who's watching this. I don't know who's listening to this. I don't know who's on the other side of the screen. And I do hope that, before I started, I asked my ancestors for me to speak with clarity and authenticity. And as much as like, I'm like, I can't wait to go back and watch this, because sometimes like it just be coming, I'm like, oh my God, I really said that. But I did, and it's what was needed in that moment. And so I know that if you made it this far, you're getting something out of it. I trust that you got something out of it. And yeah, it's like, it's for me, it's for next. And also thinking of yourself, like thinking of yourself as an ancestor, because again, going back to Trevor Noah's question of who will you be? What was it exactly? Who will you be when history calls? Who is Mango? Like, and to think of like, what imprint am I leaving for the next person? Whether, you know, like, what am I leaving for the next ancestor? Like, how do I want to show up as an ancestor? What print do I want to leave on the world? I want people to be authentically themselves, to be able to experience sex freely. It's like we all, and again, it's like, it's so taboo for sex, but that's the only way we got here. Somebody had to fuck for you to be on this planet right now. So why are we so adverse to talking about it? Why is there so much shame about it? Why, like, it's just, you know, there's so many beautiful things can become out of sex. And if we had, you know, and I talked about it in that episode, asparagus pussy, of like, people get, I saw some other video of a person that they were talking about sex the hot topic of sex education in like elementary schools and middle schools and stuff. And it's like, again, because we've only been taught to think of sex as heteronormative, penis and vagina. So yes, it sounds outlandish to have a conversation with a child about that. However, in the elementary school level, that sexual education is consent. And it doesn't even have to be in necessarily a sexual space, because consent is outside of sex too. Again, expanded definitions. Consent is out. Do you have permission to touch me? Bitches be having their hands in my hair. You didn't ask me to touch my hair. There's nothing sexual about this experience. But did you ask, could you touch me? Yes or no? No? Then why the fuck are you touching me? So that is teaching kids how to advocate for themselves with yes or no. Taking it a step further, instead of, you know, policing and sugarcoating and all of these things, you know, your body parts and stuff, like, it has its place, yes, but also teaching actual anatomy. This is how that works. Like, you have people who are just so scared, and even women who are scared to talk to their daughter or their womb holding child about menstruation. Like, bleeding is seen as this dirty thing. Again, going back to, why is the temple sacred but the fluids that come out of it are, you know, and even like shit, let's talk about shit. Like, yeah, shit is gross, but when you reframe it and you think about it, it's like, that is, my body did the work to process what I needed out of what I ingested, and it was strong and smart enough to push that out. I think it's renal failure. It's like, people can't shit. I know my grandma, that was something she struggled with as she was preparing to transition. My grandma could not shit. So I could be great. Like, that's crazy, right? You needed to be assisted in taking a shit. Sorry, grandma. I know you probably like, why are you telling these people my business? But like, that's a real thing. I can be grateful that I'm not constipated, that I shit regularly, that my body does what it needs to do to push that out. So again, I'm not out here praising shit, but that's a beautiful thing that my body is able to shit with no problem. So it's really about looking at things. And so, yeah, like the people, you know, I think about Marsha P. Johnson, trans woman, Black. I can't remember off the top of my head if she was a sex worker, but I think she was. That's somebody I never knew directly, but without her existence, there's so many things that would have happened for me to be here, to be able to talk about. So yeah, that was one thing. Is there anything else on here I do have something else that I wanted to read. I talked a lot about the Pleasure Summit. I talked about different forms of pleasure, talking about offerings. Christianity at your command. So, in that I was talking about, Christianity, rightfully so, has so many hangups, and my connection with Christianity and what this journey has been for me. Because I don't, even today when I was in church, the pastor said some things that I was like, nigga, I could punch you in the face right now. Like, I'm not gonna agree with everything, but I know that, like, as important as it was for my ancestors, I'm here for a reason. Every time I've gone to a service, I've gotten something out of it. It's informed me in a different way. And so today, one of the other days connected to this is like, people will read the Bible, but it's really this word is a pathway to inform, I'm going to say, for lack of it's not the word I want to say, but like good living, successful living, like really being connected and to source. And if it feels uncomfortable to say God and Jesus or whatever else, replace it with I. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4-8, the love is patient, love is kind. Replacing that with yourself and using that to inform how you move through the world, using that to inform how you interact with other people. Mango is patient, Mango is kind, and so on and so forth. Like, even, I'm sitting in traffic, I'm like, damn, these niggas is like, why the fuck is you moving this slow and it's all that fucking space up here, and then this nigga right here riding my tail so I can't even move over and get in front of you. I'm not in a rush. Mango is patient. Yeah, I'm pissed off, I'm annoyed, maybe I got somewhere to go, but Mango is patient. Maybe there's a reason beyond me that I don't need to be moving as fast, and then come to find out it's a cop car up there with a woo woo real quick. Or maybe it was an accident. Somebody else was moving too fast, and then maybe if I was moving too fast, I would have got over there and then they would have hit me. Now you got a big fucking accident. So it's like being patient, using that time of like, yeah, I could try to skirt around you, but you know what? The wind feels good against my skin. The sky is beautiful. I really like this song. Maybe I'll play it 40 times in a row because I be doing that. Sometimes I'll listen to one song all day and I'll just be as hyped as I was before. Sometimes I really am worried about myself. It's the simple things though. I could listen to one song all day and just be as happy as when I first put it on. Being kind. The other day, me and my friend got real worked up about something. Like, she was really worked up because she was going through it, and I allowed her energy to then come to me and how we was interacting with the person. And then the person, I wrote it down too, because the person had said something. It was like, my friend had said something crazy to that person, and I was feeling some kind of way because it really was just like, bro, like, you being stupid right now. So I felt myself getting charged up, and I was like, you know what, let's pack it back in. And then the person ended up saying to me, because my friend said something wild to the other person, and they were clearly offended, rightfully so. So then when I came back, they was like, yeah, I don't even want y'all to look at me like that because I'll never know when I'll see y'all again, and I don't want you to have that impression of me. And then again, Mango is kind. How do I want to carry myself throughout this? So, love it. Replacing, and the universal language of the world is love and gratitude. Those are some of the highest vibrations. And you want to talk about, oh, vibrational, this is low vibrational, da da da. And it's not again, like, even that though, that like, oh, high vibes versus low vibes, we want to approach these things without judgment, noticing, going back to the observer, the watching, the watching mind, watching the thinker, of like, okay, I'm experiencing anger right now. Now I can continue to think all these, oh yeah, that bitch shouldn't have done this, and I told them the first time, I don't know why the fuck they did that, and da da da. Versus, I did tell them to do this, and I'm very upset, and I probably should have done it myself. But now I know moving forward, this isn't worth the energy to ask them. Or maybe it is worth finding another way to, reevaluate the situation. But then I'm continuing that anger cycle of like, yeah, you know, Cheryl at work, she's so fucking dumb. I don't know how she got that promotion and da 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 da. So I'm talking to my coworker about that. Then when I get off work and then somebody asks me like, oh, how was your day? Man, let me tell you about this bitch Cheryl and da da. And you just keep replaying the same emotion over and over instead of just experiencing in that moment, noticing what you need to notice and move forward. So now I'm grateful that I'm in a space where I can even be able, because again, when you're in the thick of shit, when bills need to be paid and everything, like if you, me saying this a couple months ago would have been crazy. Would have been crazy. I'm like, oh hell no, like God hate me. Everything is forsaken, right? But now that I've gotten more, and so to even go back to Afnan's comment of like, you know, this assumption that we're not going to go to heaven. What is heaven? Who dictates heaven? Heaven on earth. There's a gospel. I don't know the actual name, but like the lyrics are, hell lost another one, I am free. I'm not in hell anymore because I have a better perspective. I know, I understand that my emotions are feedback of something that needs to be worked on maybe, or like there's something here explored more, so I can approach my emotions with curiosity instead of letting my emotions and my thoughts define who I am, because I've been able to create that distance. But again, like I said, a couple months ago, a year ago, shit, even a couple of weeks ago, like as I'm more present and I just see, because originally I was gonna just talk about, you know, the foot party and this circle of fire and like maybe a couple of quotes, but how this week has played out is just like, wow, that how all of that came back together is just beautiful. And I wouldn't have been able to experience that if I hadn't been in the moment. So here's, let me see. I'll read a couple of, I'm gonna start to wrap it up because we already at the 2 hour mark. So I'm gonna wrap it up. Let me see, what quotes do I want to hear or hear? I'll read the things like I did that are highlighted. So in chapter 1 of the Circle of Fire, truth. Every human is an artist, and our greatest art is life. We perceive life and then create a story to justify, describe, and explain our perception and emotional reaction. All humans are storytellers, and that is what makes us artists. All human suffering is a result of believing in lies. As soon as we start to talk about the truth, as soon as we put it into words, it is no longer the truth. We can experience truth and we can feel truth, but when we make the story, that story is only true for us. For everyone else, it is not truth. Everyone creates his or her own story. Everyone lives in his or her own dream. When we master awareness as a habit, we always see life the way it is, not the way we want to see it. The proof that God lives in you is that you are alive. Let's see. What else did I have highlighted so far? Because again, this is a book I'm rereading. I know there was some other stuff in forgiveness, and I'll probably go back through and highlight this, but this is something else that just came up. So we have a message to deliver, first to ourselves and then to one another. That message is to remember what we really are, to remember our real nature, and to become what we really are. So when I think about, you know, who will you be when history calls, you have to be authentic to yourself first, because what do you want? Like, look at your different experiences and what have you learned from that? What are your desires? And how is that going to shape into the world? Another story I was going to tell. So I'm going to wrap it up with some funny stuff because we talked about some heavy stuff, right? Mango's message, I would say, is definitely what I began with, pleasure. How do you experience pleasure? How can you invite more pleasure into your life? Taking the context out of sex, or maybe you don't have enough sex and that's something that you want to explore more. But how can you experience more pleasure? And if you're someone who doesn't experience a lot of pleasure, how can you allow yourself? Because you have to allow yourself first. You have to give permission to you to do whatever it is in life. Nobody else's opinions or whatever else, when we really get down to the nitty gritty of it, nobody else's opinions and thoughts and whatever experiences matter. It's about you. So how are you going to you have to be your own permission slip. And then, who will you be when history calls? How are you showing up as an ancestor? What can you be grateful for now in your experience that your ancestors didn't get to experience? And how can you experience more of that pleasure? How can you be loving? How can you spread more love? Right? And I'm still just kind of, set up on this. Like, I was literally born to be a dominatrix. I think about one of my first, like, harnessy outfits and my flogger, and I took a picture in the mirror, not knowing anything about what a dominatrix is for real. And I took a picture and I was like, wow, I look like a dominatrix. And look at me now. And back to the astrology tip, it's like now I'm connecting, like, your sun sign is your higher self. So when I really think about, like, that higher version of me is very organized, is very, so that's the part that I would agree with. Like, in some spaces, I'm really not that organized. I got so many files, file names is crazy, or this is there, it's constantly getting cluttered and I constantly got to clean up or whatever. But then when I think about it, like, when I really sit down and connect with, like, okay, I am my God self, I am that higher version of myself, you know, this is how I would do something. And even looking at that too, of like, as an ancestor, as a spirit, as a whatever you believe in, whatever you connect in. Offerings. What is an offering? An offering is like a gift, a tribute, a sacrifice, a sign of respect, a sign of reverence, showing that this is more than me. Like, even if you're leaving, an offering of food to your ancestors, it's like, I really wanted this chocolate cake, but I know that, my mother or my grandmother, my grandfather really loved this chocolate cake too. And I bet in the spirit realm, they would really love this cake. And it's not out of obligation. I'm like, damn, I got to give this offering. Never give an offering out of obligation. But it's like, they could appreciate that. Or sometimes even, everybody got their own whatever, but sometimes I might be like, listen, I really do want this cake. I'm gonna take a little bite. But my mom be like, poison control. I'd be like, girl, if it's poison and we both gonna die, well, we died together. Just know I love you. Like, girl, she be tripping. But poison control, I'm gonna make sure it's good before I give it to my But seriously though, but also thinking of this as an offering of your higher self, especially if you're someone who experiences trauma or difficulty with exploring sexual pleasure, of, the highest, when you look at the highest version of yourself, this is something that you want. You want to be able to experience this sense of free pleasure, or whatever that is, whatever that looks like for you. How can I do this to become that, to be in that moment, to feel closer to that version of myself? So anyway, y'all know I love me some quotes. I love me some third eye. Today's quote, May 3rd, 2026, was, the version of you that kept going when it made no sense. Honor them. You didn't come this far to arrive at almost. What's yours is being arranged in ways you can't yet see. Trust the timing you don't understand. Trust the quiet. Trust that rest is not falling behind. You are not waiting. You are becoming. So this whole episode has been about how, like, things are just connected. Everything has meshed together so beautifully. So a couple of the Cards Against Humanities. Me and my brother, we fucking love Cards Against Humanity, and it gets crazy. So last night it was me, my brother, and my cousin playing. So the question was, what's that smell? That's the black card. So then somebody put down masturbation. And then somebody else put down two whales fucking the shit out of each other. I'll read that one last. There was one that was like, this month's Cosmo, spice up your sex life by bringing blank into the bedroom. So I had this card and I was like, this is actually a beautiful, this worked out. 1,000 Slim Jims. Let me tell you some ways you could use Slim Jims and a motherfucking sex. I'm going to save that for later, right? Once my food play course is ready, y'all check that out. But I thought that was funny. What else? There was, the secret to a lasting marriage is communication, and fucking a corpse back to life. My life is ruled by a vicious cycle of Republicans and poverty. How accurate. Oh, fun tip. When your man asks you to go down on him, try surprising him with filling a man's anus with concrete instead. Help me, doctor. I've got Morgan Freeman's voice in my butt. Help me, doctor. I've got peeing into a girl's butt to make a baby in my butt. That was like one of the first cards that we pulled. And then the last one, which again, to go back to Afnan's comment about making it into heaven and this whole, sex work and blah, blah, blah. What's there a ton of in heaven? Pussy. Hell yeah. Yeah, so if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. Again, I trust that whatever was for you in this, you received. And if you don't receive it today, maybe, this is one of those things that either helps connects the dots for you, or it leads you down the path to help it, to then connect some dots. Send questions, stories, and topics to 2scrippers1pole@gmail.com. Make sure to follow on Instagram at 2SKRIPPAS1POLE. You can find me on Instagram as Temptress Mango, as Mangoes_Muse. Yeah, those Mango's Paradise, but I don't know if there's an underscore in that. But anyway, I'm all over Instagram. The main one is 2scrippers1pole, 2SKRIPPAS1POLE. Period. Y'all be safe. Make good choices.